Alright, we're talking about rational and irrational numbers today. An irrational number is a number that cannot be expressed as a ratio of two integers or as a repeating or terminating decimal. A real number is a rational or irrational number. Any number is a real number. And the density property is the property that states that between any two real numbers, there is always another real number. Okay? So, write all the names that apply to each number. You can get a little picture from me that shows examples of every type of number, whether it's rational, irrational, or real, or whole, or counting. Okay? So, 5 is a natural number. Natural is another name for counting. That is not a perfect square. If you take the square root of 5, you get the following. 2.236. Okay? So, it keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It doesn't just terminate perfectly. Okay? So because it doesn't terminate perfectly, and it just keeps going on and on and on, it is irrational. But it's also a whole number, and it's also a real number because every number is real. Negative 12.75. Now it is a terminating decimal, meaning it has a clear-cut end. It just doesn't keep going forever and ever. So because of that, it is rational. It ends. It's rational. It just doesn't keep going and going and going. And it's also real. Okay? It is not a whole number because it's negative. And square root of 16 over 2. Now on some of these you have to actually evaluate. And the square root of 16 is 4 over 2. And when you divide 4 divided by 2, you get 2. Now 2 is a natural or a counting number because natural or counting numbers start at 1 and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's also a whole number because whole numbers start at 0 and go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's an integer because integers are all your negative and positive numbers. And it's rational because it doesn't just go on forever and ever and ever. And it's real because all numbers are real. State if the number is rational, irrational, or not a real number. Justify your answer. So, 0 over 3. 0 divided by 3 is 0. You can have a 0 in the numerator and it's still 0. It's okay. So 0 is rational because 0 is a whole number. Okay? Now, remember when I said a few lessons ago the negative cannot be under the square root sign? That is because it makes it not a real number. You cannot take the square root of a negative number. So it is not a real number. And I know I just told you every number is a real number, but this is a special case because it has the negative under the square root. So, because it is the square root of a negative number. 4/9. The square root of 4/9 is 2/3. Okay, because the square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 9 is 3, because we set that up as the square root of 4 over the square root of 9. The square root of 4 is 2, square root of 9 is 3. So it is rational because you can make an actual fraction out of it. Find a real number between 3 and 2/5 and 3 and 3/5. Remember, the density property said the property states that between any two real numbers, there's always another real number. Okay? So, there's a real number between those two. So what we're going to do is, there are many solutions, but one solution, and one way to do this, so you're not just trying to guess, is halfway between the two numbers. To find it, add the numbers and divide by 2. So we're going to add 3 and 2/5 plus 3 and 3/5 and divide by 2. when we do that, 3 plus 3 is 6, 2 plus 3 is 5. Okay? Now, 5 over 5 equals 1 whole, right? So because it equals 1 whole, we can do 6 plus 1 and get 7, and then divide 7 by 2 and get 3.5. All right? So, or 3.5, since they have a fraction. So we have that marked, we have that marked, and 3.5 is directly in between them. So, a real number between 3 and 2/5 and 3 and 3/5 is 3 and 1/2. Alright, that's all we got for this lesson.